Welcome to Not What I Thought. I'm Erica.
I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Becca. We're therapists, entrepreneurs, and perfectly imperfect humans.
We first met during a business owner retreat where we became fast friends because we're not afraid to be real and ask the hard questions about life. What we thought it would be like, how messy it actually is, and the courage it takes to create the life we want.
We continue to build our friendship and personal growth through our own retreats. We find the deepest connection in sharing our struggles and finding what we have in common rather than what divides us.
We're breaking down hard topics on our podcast and together have conversations about what it takes to find real talk, real support, and real rest for professional women. We're glad you're here. Join us on your favorite podcast platform. Hi, everybody. We are very excited to have Sam with us on our Not What I Thought episode today. So Sam, we will let you do a very brief introduction and then tell us what your topic is.
Okay, so thank you so much for having me. This is going to be really fun. Really enjoying the energy here already. I'm Sam Sundius. I am a visual artist and a creative coach, working primarily with neurodivergent people on leaning into how awesome and weird our brains are. Yeah. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. As I'm like what's known as a late in life diagnosis or a late in life ID of neurodivergence, which means that I went a very awesome 35 years of my life without knowing all of the kinds of neurodivergence that I was, and actually I keep on finding out, which we'll totally get to later. But essentially, like, my story starts, I was a kid and I was immediately outed as a weirdo, but in a way that was highly celebrated. I was in a gifted program from the time that I was 7 because I was considered to be like very intelligent, which I was, but really what that means is just that I did really well on a standardized test when I was a little kid. It started with like lots of awards and attention, and as I was getting older, things got a little bit more challenging in middle school and high school. Like, my grades still looked good, but I was struggling a lot. By the time I got to college, I felt like I was like in the midst of a breakdown. I couldn't focus on things. Like, everything was a struggle. It was so like, it was moving more and more into adult life. It got super confusing why like the outcome never seemed to mirror the effort of what I was doing. Sometimes things came really easily. Other times I was like trying really, really hard and things would just blow up. And I started doing some wild stuff because it felt like doing the normal thing wasn't really working for me. So I moved to Europe 3 times. Before I was 25. I met the most incredible person I've ever met in my life, and we got married when I was 25, 24. So when we were really young, and I just kind of, but like at the same time, like having a lot of fun, but it didn't feel like my life was really building towards anything. And I would have these like moments of huge investment in like a career or something that would just like blow up in these really fantastic ways that I didn't see being mirrored around me anywhere. And I kind of thought that the solution was like getting more and more serious and trying to buckle down and be a more serious person. And yeah, absolutely.
Conveniently, my phone reminded me that it is not muted at exactly the moment that I was going to ask you a question.
Oh, okay.
Great. Okay. It actually is muted. That means this person has called 3 times in a row. Delightful. Okay.
Are they okay?
It's on my business line. It's not personal.
Okay.
I'm actually going to put my phone in the other room just because that might keep happening. Okay.
This is beautifully on topic, though. Thank you, Becca.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Love this.
I
Highly
did want to
relatable.
ask about blowing up, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Does that mean like crazy success, or does that mean like an implosion, things aren't working?
Oh,
Or a
yes.
combination.
Or combination?
Exactly. That's it. That's the
Yeah.
one. It's a combination. It's both.
Mm.
Oh
Because
my
there's
God.
this way like that I'm looking at just the data points. You're like a gifted kid, like grades
Mhm.
are awesome,
Mhm.
moving to Europe, trying these business things that like could look like this is a person who's thriving and doing awesome. But
Yeah.
it sounds like internally it didn't
In
feel like success.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's a very relatable story for a lot of people who have this experience. But yeah, it's essentially that arc that I described from like when I was a little kid and being highlighted as being gifted and being celebrated and all of that stuff to like being considered something of like a problem child and feeling like I
Mhm.
barely graduated high school. Just that arc again and again and again with every job, with every new experience, like starting out on something that like I was really excited about and was able to bring a lot of enthusiasm to and getting really positive responses for it, and then things going kind of sideways, um, and not fully understanding why that was happening, and then it kind of blowing up in that kind of like implosion explosion way of like
Mhm.
employers trying to like take me to court or me threatening to take employers to court, like having collaborations where you know again like people starting to threaten me with legal action around stuff where I don't and I have no idea what's gone sideways. A lot of times I'm just bringing like all of my enthusiasm and like this like which is also a big part of neurodivergence, especially being autistic, is like this like really intense sense of justice and like doing like what I think is the right thing and doing what I think is the thing by the books, and not being able to read when people are like what is their own personal agenda, or like what are they trying to do, or like where is their thinking, like not being able to read how they're interpreting what I'm doing, which is like anyway. So like yeah, having like job after job ending in burnout and burned bridges and all of these things, and kind of going from like really feeling like I was on top of the world. When I got married, the same year I got married, I opened a bar in Paris.
Mm.
I was the general manager for a very prestigious cocktail, like a group of restaurant owners opening their second bar, and I like headed it up essentially alone, and like managing the staff, being there every night, like running all of the things, making all of the final decisions on stuff, writing the menu, and like within 4 months, those people weren't talking to me anymore.
Wow.
So it really, and it like, it was this huge roller coaster and not understanding. And I don't want to jump ahead in the format, but I just, it feels like it fits here that like, I think another thing maybe a lot of people can relate to is that like, part of what makes these so dramatic is that when you are an unidentified neurodivergent, you tend to spend a lot of time with other unidentified neurodivergents. And so a lot of unidentified neurodivergents trying to pretend they're neurotypical
Mhm.
without knowing how to care for ourselves can create these like very
Mhm.
volatile spaces. Yeah.
Can I rewind the tape, Sam?
100%. Yeah.
So, so in the early years, as you're transitioning from this gifted 7-year-old and you're going into middle school and things are picking up, getting harder, and into high school, how were you and the people around you making sense of that? Like, what was going on?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the best answer I have, it's just a really sad one, and it's what happens to so many kids. You're not trying
Mhm.
hard enough. You're being
Mhm.
lazy. You know better than
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
And that was about it. I again like I was this gifted kid,
Mhm.
right? And I did so well on things, and I was winning writing awards, and I was failing spelling tests like
Mhm.
in middle school, and it never occurred to anyone that I was dyslexic, because you're not a gifted kid who's also dyslexic. Like it just,
Mhm.
all of the struggles that I had were like I think with like I was just kind of like flattened into this, like so many kids are, and it's so heartbreaking, and to like this, like you can only be one thing, and
Which
so
was what?
everything, which was
Only the gifted
like
kid?
a
The
smart kid.
successful, yeah, the
Yeah, you
successful,
don't
smart.
exactly. You don't get to struggle if you're like a smart kid. And I
Mm,
think like and a lot of how diagnosis works is it's based on this idea of like disorder, right? It's
Mhm.
like it was the same brain doing all of these things. It was my same brain that got into that gifted program, which just like as this quick sidebar, someone said a couple years ago something like convinced me that like gifted kids aren't actually special ed kids, and just stays with me because it's so fucking real. Because I learned so well in that environment, and once that like kind of gifted environment went away and I
Mhm.
needed to conform to what was like to
Mhm.
like other pedagogy, I couldn't do it.
mhm.
And all of a sudden the fact that I was a special ed kid started to show, but because I had already been highlighted as like gifted.
The label gifted.
Exactly. No, like no one wanted to believe that my struggle was legitimate, even as I spent more and more hours trying to complete homework because I just couldn't focus. Um, and it just like my anxiety and like my stress just like kept on going up as I just kept on trying to put in more and more effort to make things work. And then so that's kind of ended up being the going really hard my freshman year, and then sort of like burning out and like running away to Europe. Like if anyone's just listening to this, I'm doing like air quotes like left and
Yeah.
right. Probably not the best for audio, but maybe maybe it's coming across italicized in my voice. But yeah, just this kind of like going really hard, and then sort of like having a big period of backing off and then going hard and then backing off and not understanding
Yeah, like
like
there's
the
a way that it
cycle.
sort of logically makes sense, even though it doesn't work. That if the like belief that you're working on is that I'm just not trying hard enough, and
hmm
that's the problem,
Yes.
then what I need to do is put these like big pushes of effort into let me just do more. But then you like one, that isn't actually what needs to happen. That's not really the problem. So it doesn't fix, but then you burn out and then you're in whatever kind of period of burnout, which probably fuels the see I don't work hard enough, which then you go back and like put
Yep.
in this other big push, and all along you're saying you're like getting increasingly anxious and like lots of inner turmoil.
Yeah, but wait,
Yeah,
it gets worse.
but we
Oh, there's
oh dear.
more.
Because here's the other part. Here's the other part about like when you're. So I identify as non-binary. I use they them pronouns, but I was socialized and I am treated as a woman. Right. The other part about like being treated as a woman in society, or having that assigned female at birth experience is that like we there's this expectation that like we're like the micromanagers for like when the shit hits the fan. Like if the shit hits the fan, it is our fault. Like it is
Mhm.
our job to like
Mhm.
maintain everyone's emotions, to make sure that like all of the i's are dots and t's are crossed and all of those things. And this is an expectation that very frequently is not put on male counterparts,
hmm
um, which is like often we'll see sometimes kind of this uh, a lot of men in high positions who are very clearly neurodivergent but never cross that disordered threshold, again air quotes disordered,
hmm
because society has normalized
Mhm.
their creativity,
Mhm.
their like I always think about like Harrison Ford in Working Girl for some reason, like he's like changing his shirt in the middle of the office and everyone's just like, yay, this is normal, like
hmm
and he's like this high powered dude, but like this kind of like men automatically get assistance, like automatically get promoted into like these positions that privilege analytical thinking, which is much easier for neurodivergence to do. So for someone who's socialized as a woman, like I was running this bar in Paris when I was 24, 25 years old, because that was something that my brain could do really easily. I could juggle many tasks. I could keep on repeating back to things. I could imagine stuff far enough in advance to know what kind of glassware we were going to need to be able to anticipate all of these things. I could do all this big analytic thinking. But when that went sideways, again, for like the, different emotional reasons and the stuff that I wasn't able to quite understand or anticipate, my response was, oh, I need to do something smaller. This went sideways because I didn't know what it meant to be neurodivergent. I had no idea that I was I knew I was weird, right? But I had no idea that I wasn't like the kind of neurotypical that I assumed everyone was. Also, again, because when you're neurodivergent, you surround yourself with neurodivergence and you just think like, this is all normal. But I started taking on jobs that were that like had less of this, like that were like more detail oriented. So like shifting from being a manager to like, maybe I should just be a bartender again. Shifting from being a bartender to like, maybe I should be like working in a wine store or something where it's like less high pressure. Maybe I should be a copywriter for like the wine store, because that's even less pressure than being, and like just constantly like making myself smaller and trying to take on smaller and smaller jobs. So like and like gradually becoming underemployed as it was happening. But like also like the irony of like, I went from doing this thing that worked really well with my brain, which was managing a bar, and not understanding why that didn't work. I kept on trying to problem solve until I was working a position as a unstructured part-time copywriter for a wine store, which as a dyslexic person with ADHD who doesn't know it yet was like the worst thing I could be
Really
doing.
bad
And
idea.
I was so bad at it. I was so bad at it. But like my logic that had gotten me there said that I should have been good at it. And so I just kept on getting more and more discouraged. And man, I think like the real turning point, but also the kind of hilariously heartbreaking part of this, is that if anyone's ever read, it's an ADHD classic, Women in ADHD, from like the mid 90s, and it describes the experience of two different women with ADHD and kind of like does this like amalgam of what their lives could look like. And one of them looks exactly like my life. Like it is my life written 30 years before it happened. And I was livid when I read it, because it was so exactly the thing. And here it is in black and white. And no one told me that this is what I was going through.
So that's like the eye-opening thing that really shifted things for you.
Yeah.
How did you find that book? Like, how did it come that you?
How was it in your hands?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is what's going on with me.
Well, so I think that was the really like not what I thought moment. The way that I got there, this is a very good ADHD story. Someone was talking about their experience being a gifted child to realizing that they were neurodivergent as an adult in what's called like the twice exceptional sort of paradigm. People sometimes call it that. I was like, wow, this is uncanny. This describes exactly my spouse. And so I started doing all this research on ADHD in the middle of the day instead of doing my own work. And when I was looking at that, I was like, yeah, this is my spouse. This is my spouse.
For sure.
And then I got to the screener and I went through the screener and I was like, oh yeah, now I remember why everyone makes fun of ADHD. This shit's so fucking vague. Like anyone would say yes to most of these. I say yes to most of these.
Oh.
And it was kind of like this like pause in my head and I was like, oh.
Oh,
Ding, ding, ding. Oh.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
I had a
But-
similar situation. Like my husband got diagnosed, and then we were in Barnes and Nobles with the kids, and then I was like looking for, a book, and it was like how to support your partner who's neurodivergent. And so I'm like pulling it out, and it has like a list of things, that you need to understand as the partner. And I was like, oh man, like there's like 10 things on here, and I definitely meet like 9 of them. So I'm glad I'm being supportive.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, this is like the kind of, it's like, it's comical and it's heartbreaking at the same time, because like also like the
Yeah.
amount of grief that we go through getting to that point is so fucking real. But like the way it's just like, it's so many people around us. I've heard this joke. I don't have kids, full disclosure, but I've heard this joke that like a lot of people in ADHD circles will talk about catching ADHD from their children,
Yeah.
because like their kids get diagnosed and they realize it's like, oh, that's totally
No,
me,
that's a
right? But
super common thing for ADHD and autism, right? That the practitioner is talking through the diagnosis or whatever, and these are the things, and the parent's like, but isn't that just normal? That's how I feel.
right?
Like,
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think, it gets right to the heart of like the way that we think about neurodivergence, the way that we think
Yeah.
about ADHD and being autistic, the fact that we like still rely on these things as diagnoses and disorders rather than seeing them as neurotypes means that
Yeah.
like it requires people and family to go through that level of dysfunction, that like in order to be able to get into an environment where someone's able to help shed the light on them. And like it's so heartbreaking because there's so many other ways that we can recognize this and get support and be deserving of support before the shit hits the fan like that, before things totally go sideways. And
Well,
yeah.
I know that you've named as well, like the emotional piece. And what also stands out to me is like the relational component of shit hitting the fan. Like as you've tried to figure out, before your diagnosis, tried to figure out your way of like navigating through the world with these challenges. Becca, I think Becca had a thought or a question, but I'm curious about like, what was step number one and what's different now after you read the book?
So the book was eye-opening for like knowing that like this was like a very common experience, even though it's like I don't know that it helped that much in that moment of like knowing what to do. That has been a much longer journey. I didn't realize until a few years later that I was autistic also. And so like, and then it was a few years after that that I finally pieced together that I'm dyslexic. I can't recognize faces. Like, who gets into their 30s without realizing that they're face blind? But it's like all these different ways that I had learned to
Hmm.
mask.
Hmm.
And I think like, I don't know if this answers your question, but I feel like for me, that is constantly the shift, is like every time I find out a way that I've maybe been masking and I can lean a little bit more into partnership with my brain
Mm.
and like step out of this trying to force it to be something else, trying to hide the ways that my brain is different, is like it feels like connecting more to myself, and like it's a huge unburdening. It's a huge unburdening. Yeah. And I mean, for this is like a totally other thing, but like as far as like the hereditary factor in my family, um I don't know that anyone else in my family has ever received a diagnosis or really identified, because I'm estranged from my family of origin at
Hmm.
this point, which
Hmm.
is also a really common thing,
Hmm.
unfortunately. And I think it has a lot to do with the ways that we're under supported, and just being allowed to be a different neurotype before there's like a clinically diagnosable disorder.
And before you become the problem child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, I
Quote,
stepped,
air quotes, problem child.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I stepped into the problem child role because like, there's just, I mean, and I guess there's so much that we could say about like, intergenerational trauma and everything.
Hmm.
And like, when you don't like the ways that I couldn't understand why my efforts were getting such different results. Like I could put in what I thought was the same amount of effort and get a different result because I was still trying to play by a neurotypical playbook rather than understanding like who I was as a neurodivergent person. And I see in a lot of that, like when we're unidentified neurodivergents out in the world and we can't make sense of our results, like we tend to interpret it one of two ways. Either we internalize it and we see ourselves as the problem,
Right.
and or we externalize it and we see everyone else as the problem. And then there's like kind of narcissistic or kind of grandiose behavior that can come out of that on the other side. And usually it's like a mix of like both, but like both of these things that don't allow us to have healthy relationships with other people, really. And it's kind of like when without knowing that people get to be disabled, without knowing that you get to be disabled or neurodivergent, like that's really all we're left with to try and figure out what is happening.
So can you talk to us, Sam, about what is awesome about your life now that you know yourself better? Like, how are you thriving?
Yeah. How much time do we have?
About 10 minutes.
Well, we're at 25 minutes now, so
So to put it briefly, I mean, I didn't know life could be this good. My life is, I feel like it's so easy to be myself, and I feel like being myself is like literally like a gift to other people. Like I feel like it not only allows me to connect with other people, but it's like this way of like creating permission for like other people to be more themselves, and like just getting to sit in that energy all day long. I mean, it's something I was experiencing that kind of drew me to this idea of being a coach. And now it's like I've made it like the heart of my practice is like how to help people partner more with their brains all the time, and like find that really beautiful authenticity and integrity with who they are. It's so freeing. It's so freeing. It's wild. Yeah.
that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What parts have been the most surprising to you as you've like come to learn and know yourself better and kind of give yourself permission to be you?
I think how I think the thing that's constantly surprising to me is that like all of the what comes to light is not all of the work I have to do to know who I am. It's all of the things I'm unlearning that derailed me from being in touch with myself in the first place. Like, like 30 something autistic Sam is not more autistic than little kid Sam was. And like there's a through line in so many of those behaviors, and like it's like they're not a surprise to me, but it's like the fact that like I assumed that, like I just believed so easily that that couldn't be me, that I knew what being autistic or being ADHD or being neurodivergent was, and that wasn't for me. Like that, you know, I wasn't. I think also just like the assumption that I wasn't allowed to be disabled. All of these ways that we, I think, are constantly unlearning these connections is what continues to be surprising to me. And it's like, it means that like, yes, this is a new identity. Yes, this is new information. But in so many ways, it ends up feeling like a homecoming still. It's like allowing these things in that I've been constantly dismissing my whole life, rather than like trying to integrate something that's foreign or totally new.
I got like little warm, fuzzy chills when you were talking about that, like the idea that I have always been me. And so the learning isn't, I have to figure out this new person. It's like, I actually just need to take off and unlearn the stuff that doesn't fit because this is who I have always been.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
That's amazing. Sam, what does your heart know to be true?
My heart knows to be true that, and this is going to sound like my sentimentality is usually very political. My heart knows to be true that there is no such thing as able-bodied or neurotypical. There is only able-bodied passing and neurotypical passing. That we all benefit from leaning into disability justice and understanding our bodies as ever-changing things in this world and being able to meet ourselves exactly where we are and asking
Mm.
others to do the same. Yeah.
Mm. Wow. Thank you for that. Becca, what does your heart know to be true?
My heart knows that this happiness and freedom comes for all of us when we figure out how to take off and unlearn what isn't authentically us.
Mm.
What does your heart know, Erica?
Oh, following those two is really hard, but my heart knows that I've already been working to unlearn the why can't you just
Mm.
message that I think I must have picked up from somewhere, and that's something to explore maybe on another day. Um, I'm eliminating that from thinking about that for myself, my kids, my partner, anybody and everybody, all my clients, and I think that's going to benefit everybody.
Mm.
Yolanda, what does your heart know to be true?
I'm going to paraphrase what Sam said earlier and really lean into, becoming who we are, the truth of who we are, unlearning all the things to be more authentically who we are is not just a gift to ourselves, but a gift to the world around us, the people around us. And we need a little bit more of that in the world. Yeah.
True
Sam, thank you
story.
so much for sharing your story with us.
You guys, this has been so delightful. Thank you so much for the space and welcoming me into it.
Yeah. If people want to connect with you, how do they find you?
So my coaching practice is called Art of Undiscipline with a U, undiscipline. And you can find me at my website, artofundiscipline.com. If you want to check out my artwork, which is weird and wild, beautiful stuff about cognitive fidelity and grief and all those things, that's at samsundius.com. Yeah,
Oh,
Awesome.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. Yeah.